sprint machine for specialized loading in this return to play process. So this is just some stuff that Jacob and I are starting to mess around with. And again, admittedly, we are just starting to try to understand this. We're certainly not wizards and we're certainly not experts at all of this yet. But here's like a basic idea of what we're looking at so far, right? So we have athletes that have these ACL injuries from last season. So one of the things we want to do is restore their ability to decelerate. And so we can accentuate the deceleration intensity by increasing the eccentric overload, or basically the assistance, right? So we can take a basic drill where the athlete has the cord around his waist and he's facing the machine. So as soon as he was to project this way, he would be assisted in terms of his load going towards the machine. He would be tugged towards it and he would have to decelerate himself effectively, or he would just continue to run towards the machine. So we could set these cones here 1 to 1.5 yards apart. And basically this athlete would start on 2 feet and then jump through the air forwards and try to land on one limb and completely decelerate. So what we've done is we've set the assisted speed to 5 meters per second because we found some of our better athletes are, they're greater than 2.5 meters per second when they're taking off through the air, which we'll talk about in a second. So, but none of them are reaching that 5 meters per second in terms of the velocity of the jump going forward. So that's just an upper limit that allows them to really just take off and not be limited by the speed, the assisted speed. And then we start them at 3 kilos of pull, and then we start to go up from there, right? We're gonna start them more at 1 yard apart instead of 1.5 yards apart. So we face the machine, jump off 2 feet, land on 1, and they have to stick and hold that deceleration for 2 seconds for it to count as a rep. If they land and they start rolling forward too much, or they take a couple steps out, we tell them, hey, go back, redo that rep. Let's get that nice firm deceleration for 2 seconds, right? So if we wanted to continue to increase the intensity of the deceleration, we can do one of 2 things, or we can do both. We could increase the assisted load. So instead of 3 kilos, maybe I'm pulling that athlete towards the machine with 9 kilos of pull now. So it's a little bit more intense in terms of the tug towards the machine, which would increase the deceleration intensity. Or we could set these cones further apart so that the approach speed in terms of the jump and then landing by this cone becomes more intense. Or we can do both together, right? And so what we're really focusing on is how comfortable is that athlete in terms of allowing himself to be pulled through the air and then immediately decelerate that. Is he comfortable with that or is he not, right? So we can look at a couple different examples here. So this is one of our players coming back from ACL injury, 4 months post-surgery. He had a patellar tendon graft. And something that's interesting about that is we can see in the video here that he's afraid to use his knee, right? This is his repaired leg, his left leg here. He's afraid to bend at the knees. He wants to utilize his hip more. And it was his patellar tendon graft that they took. So he's trying to rely more on his hip there. But we can see this is a 1 yard entry here. So let's just look at like the eccentric speed, or the assisted speed, I should say, into that deceleration. So on his healthy leg, we're looking at maybe 1.88 meters per second. And then his injured leg, his ACL injured leg, his left leg, 1.8. So there's a 4.3% asymmetry there. So maybe we don't think that that's that much. Over time, we're going to learn what is significant and what's not. But if we bring that load up to 6 kilos, we see now it's slower. And the reason why it's slower is because that athlete is afraid, maybe subconsciously, of just letting himself being pulled towards that machine. Even in this video, we can see he's basically got this little arc in his jump, right? He's not allowing himself to just rip and stick, going straight forward horizontally. He's trying to hesitate into that deceleration. So if we look at his left leg, now if we went on 6 kilos, this heavier assisted load, much less than before, right? So we see a 12.4% asymmetry there. So that's likely significant. Again, we need to continue to monitor this to determine what is significant and what is not, right? But our high performing healthy players, like I said before, doing a drill like this, they're going to achieve an assisted speed of greater than 2.5 meters per second. So basically, they're able to achieve that higher speed because they feel more comfortable just jumping into the assistance and then immediately stopping it because they're healthy, right? This athlete doesn't feel like he's fully healthy yet. He's still in rehab. It makes a lot of sense. So again, even on his healthy leg, he's not feeling super confident compared to a high performing healthy player. So these are things that we need to monitor over time to improve his confidence when it comes to decelerating on a single limb. So here's another example of a player. And this athlete had a hamstring tendon graft. So this is actually his third ACL tear in his career. He's one of our freshmen who came into college already having 2 ACL tears, and then he got a third one last season. So you can notice a difference here where he's much more comfortable going through his knee, right? He's trying to avoid using his hip because they took the hamstring tendon. So that's where the damage was done in terms of the damage incurred from the actual surgery itself. So much more knee bend than that athlete, a different strategy to decelerate. So the video is important here as well, not just the numbers that we're achieving. But this athlete was very comfortable in terms of symmetry between the limbs, as we'll see. So he utilized even more loading than that last athlete. So we got him first at maybe 9 kilos. And we can see here a 2.9% asymmetry there. So again, not close to what these high-performing healthy players are doing, but there's not a lot of asymmetry here from injured limb to non-injured limb. So we brought him up to 12, and again, there wasn't much of an asymmetry there either. So our strategy with this player was really, okay, let's increase the approach speed now. So going forward, instead of having these cones 1 yard apart, let's go 1.5 yards apart. And now that'll allow him to have an increased approach speed into it and have to decelerate more intensely. And hopefully we can get that assisted speed to go higher, because we need him to experience something around this, or, you know, even over 3 meters per second. So because he's not doing that yet, we need to get him into that setting and allow him to get into that experience. So these are just some of the like little basic drills in terms of single limb deceleration that we're looking at.